But every once in a while, as I'm merrily or even not so merrily swinging along, I look out ahead of me into the distance, and what do I see? I see another trapeze bar swinging toward me. It's empty, and I know, in that place in me that knows, that this new trapeze bar has my name on it. It is my next step, my growth, my aliveness coming to get me. This is the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Hello, furry dog lover friend. Welcome back to the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Today I wanted to talk about something that is oftentimes invisible, yet tripping us up. Oftentimes, it's something that unknowingly affects your business. And it's a 4-letter word that starts with the letter F. So I'm going to let you guess what that is. And it's not a dirty word, so don't go there. It's not a dirty word. It might feel like a dirty word sometimes, but it's not a bad word. Okay, so this unknowing, invisible word that is tripping you up in your business and you don't even know it, more often than not, I'm going to say, chances are, I'm not saying for sure, I can't diagnose your business and what's getting in your way without knowing you and talking to you, but I have seen a pattern, and this pattern goes across the board for all human beings. And so chances are this 4-letter word is getting in your way and you don't even know it. It's stopping you from growing your business, perhaps. Perhaps it's preventing you from taking much needed time off. It could be preventing you from having a more balanced life and business set up for yourself, where you don't lose your insanity because you're working 24/7, 15-hour days. It could be costing you money. It could be costing you a lot of money, as a matter of fact. It could be making you work harder than you have to, even when you are there, not to say like you're not taking time off again, but to say that when you are working, you could be working harder than you need to be. It could be getting in the way of your happiness when it comes to working with customers, getting in the way of, in a sense, keeping you trapped with customers who don't appreciate you or respect you and your policies. There's so many ways that this word could secretly be sabotaging you and your business. And let's see if you can figure out what that word is by allowing me to first go into what I thought was a pretty cool parable that I know it's always really stuck with me ever since I heard it. Probably, I don't know. I was in school for my coaching, so that was back in 2015, 2016, I think it was. So let me go through this, read this parable to you, because it is so fitting. I think it really states everything that this episode is about today, and then we'll dive on in as to how it is pertaining to or could be pertaining to your business. The parable is by Dannon Perry. Sometimes I feel that my life is a series of trapeze swings. I'm either hanging on to a trapeze bar, swinging along, or for a few moments in my life, I'm hurtling across space in between trapeze bars. Most of the time, I spend my life hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar of the moment. It carries me along at a certain steady rate of swing, and I have the feeling that I'm in control of my life. I know most of the right questions and even some of the answers. But every once in a while, as I'm merrily, or even not so merrily, swinging along, I look out ahead of me into the distance, and what do I see? I see another trapeze bar swinging toward me. It's empty, and I know, in that place in me that knows, that this new trapeze bar has my name on it. It is my next step, my growth, my aliveness, coming to get me. In my heart of hearts, I know that for me to grow, I must release my grip on this present, well-known bar and move to the new one. Each time it happens to me, I hope, no, I pray that I won't have to let go of my old bar completely before I grab the new one. But in my knowing place, I know that I must totally release my grasp on my old bar, and for some moment in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab onto the new bar. Each time I am filled with terror. It doesn't matter that in all my previous hurdles across the void of unknowing, I have always made it. I am each time afraid that I will miss, that I will be crushed on unseen rocks in the bottomless chasm between bars. I do it anyway. Perhaps this is the essence of what the mystics call the faith experience. No guarantees, no net, no insurance policy, but you do it anyway. Because somehow to keep hanging on to that old bar is no longer on the list of alternatives. So for an eternity that can last a microsecond or 1,000 lifetimes, I soar across the dark void of the past is gone. The future is not yet here. It's called transition. I have come to believe that this transition is the only place that real change occurs. I mean, real change. Not the pseudo change that only lasts until the next time my old buttons get punched. I have noticed that in our culture, this transition zone is looked upon as a nothing, a no place between places. Sure, the old trapeze bar was real, and that new one coming toward me, I hope that's real too. But the void in between? Is that just a scary, confusing, disorienting nowhere that must be gotten through as fast and as unconsciously as possible? No. What a wasted opportunity that would be. I have a sneaking suspicion that the transition zone is the only real thing, and the bars are illusions we dream up to avoid the void where the real change, the real growth occurs for us. Whether or not my hunch is true, it remains that the transition zones in our lives are incredibly rich places. They should be honored, even savored. Yes, with all the pain and fear and feelings of being out of control that can be, but not necessarily can accompany transitions, they are still the most alive, most growth-filled, passionate, expansive moments in our lives. We cannot discover new oceans unless we have the courage to lose sight of the shore. And this was called Turning the Fear of Transformation into the Transformation of Fear, again by Dan and Perry. How beautiful is that parable, right? I couldn't have said that any better than Dan and Perry did. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. Danaan, Perry, Parry, if you want to look it up, because it is such a cool parable. He wrote that so beautifully to explain how the nothingness in between each trapeze bar is where all of the growth, where all of the transitioning, where all of the meaning lies in our lives. And you know what I really like about that also is he brings up one of my most favorite words in the end there, and that is courage. He was speaking about transforming the fear into courage. And, I think that's just beautiful because when you think about it, life is a paradox, right? You can't have happy without also knowing what unhappy means, what sad means, right? You can't have go without stop. You have one would not exist without the other, and the same applies to fear. You cannot have fear if you never experience courage, and you cannot have courage if you never experience fear. So when you feel fear, when you're afraid of letting go of the old in order to grab onto the new and take that flying leap in the air, know that you're just transforming fear into courage. And where there is fear, there is always courage. So let's get into how this could be unknowingly affecting your business today, which by default ripple effects out into affecting your life, your loved ones, your relationships, your health, everything, right? Because when you run your own home-based dog sitting business, you and I both know it can become all life-consuming. And if you don't find the balance, it takes over and affects everything in your world, like it or not. One of the ways that it could be popping up in your business without you even realizing it is that you could continuously be saying yes to customers when you really mean no. Right? Because you're so afraid of saying no and losing that customer, you continue to say yes. Or you're so afraid of saying no that you fear that you're afraid that they might leave you a bad review. And so therefore you continue to, bite your tongue and grin and deal with it and say yes. For me, I was always afraid to say no to customers because of a couple of reasons. I was afraid to say no because I wasn't sure if I was going to make enough money the next month or the next month or the next month, right? So I'm always trying to get as much money as I can. But of course, we always find a way of spending it, don't we? So what did I do? I just reinvested it in the business and I just bought more things for the business, more toys, more gear for the walks, whatever, you name it. There's 50% off on Halloween costumes. Yeah, I'll have to grab that while it's on a sale, right? So it didn't matter that I was always earning more because I was just spending it anyway. But then another reason was because I was afraid that if I said no to a customer, they might go to another dog sitter and they might find someone with lower prices, or they might find someone that was closer to them, whatever the case may be, and I would lose them as a customer for the long term, right? Which again really comes back down to not being concerned about losing, not making enough money overall. So there's lots of reasons why somebody might be continuously saying yes instead of saying no. One, actually, before I move on has to do with the dog sitter's curse that I've mentioned before. And that's that you just want to take care of the dog so much that you put them above your needs, you put their needs above yours, and you can't even imagine that. Like, I know I've done this before. There's certain dogs where I think, gosh, if they went to a regular, large facility, warehouse, boarding center, they would be traumatized. I know this dog could not handle that. It would be too much for them. And they already know me. I don't want them to have to go through, getting comfortable with someone else because they were so uncomfortable the first few times. And we got them to a good point, yada, yada. I would just talk myself right into, I have to take them because nobody else can, make this dog feel as good and comfortable when their parents are away as I can. So, sounds a little bit egotistical, doesn't it? But you know what I mean. It's like we want the best for the dog, so much so that we will put our needs aside and do whatever it takes to take care of that dog, which is honorable. But there's also a fine line you have to walk in that, because as the saying goes, you can only give as much as your cup is filled. So you always have to refill your cup. Okay, so moving on. Another way that fear could be creeping up and you not even know it is that you could be dragging your feet on narrowing down your niche. Your niche. Because I highly recommend a niche. If you've heard any of my previous episodes, I've spoken about it a few times. I think I have an episode specifically on niching down and the benefits of it. And it's a very paradoxical thing, because logically you think, well, if I accept less dogs because I have a certain niche, then I'm going to lower my customer base or audience, that customers that could possibly come here. And that, hey, it's very, very logical thinking. But that's the crazy thing about this one, right? Is when you niche down, you actually speak out and fulfill the needs of a very specific niche that no one else does, almost guaranteeing your service is going to be in high demand. So that's the beauty of it. But a lot of people will not niche down because they're afraid they're not going to earn enough business. All right, another one is losing a customer because you keep your boundaries. You're afraid, rather, to keep your boundaries because you're afraid you're going to lose that customer. So you probably, have been here, done this like I have in the past, whereas, customer might constantly be asking you to stay open late for a late pickup or open early for an early pickup. And you think, the first time or two, like, okay, no big deal, I can bend. And I am all for, trust me, don't get me wrong, I am all for helping a client out here and there when they're in a jam, or, they have to get to work earlier than normal or something, and they just, there's nothing else they could do and they need a little help. I'm all for that. I think that's great to work with your clients like that. But when it becomes a consistent habit, a consistent behavior, or a request, there comes a time you have to put your foot down and you have to keep your boundaries and you have to stick to your policies, because you have times, hours of operation for a reason, because those other times are times that eat into your personal recharge time, your time to get things done on a personal level, to spend with loved ones, whatever the case may be. Another way that fear could be creeping up into your business without realizing it and holding you back is fear of hiring helpers. This is a huge one, because chances are, if you are fully booked and you are working your tail end off, pun not intended, then you probably could use some help. And a lot of people I speak with their first words out of their mouth are, I don't want to manage anybody. I don't want to babysit anybody. I don't want to go through that nightmare. People, I can't find any good people. Like there is a massive fear around hiring and finding good people. And I get it. Trust me. I went through rough people. But the truth is, you are not going to get any better at finding and hiring and training people to help you and have a chance to free up your schedule so that you can have time off if you just don't jump, if you don't let go of that trapeze bar, right? Yes, there's going to be growing pains. I can almost guarantee that. But just think of how much better of a leader you will be after you've had, 2 or 3 or 4 people under your belt on your team versus the beginning, because that is the goal, is to just constantly be growing and learning how to become a better leader. And one little tip on this is I recommend just start reading books on leadership and on hiring, because you can really learn a lot from other people who have expertise and skill in this area, so that you don't have to go through a lot of those problems or challenges, or experience the depth of the challenges as much as those who usually are teaching it. For me, I have certain tips when I coach people as to how to find and hire good people and what to look for in order to make sure it's a good match and someone that's going to stick around and make it worth your while to go through the training process and get them on board. But the truth is, fear of hiring help holds so many people back. Imagine, what can you do with an extra 6 hours a day? If you had someone helping you 6 hours a day, even, imagine what could you do with those 6 hours? What could you do with those 6 hours that would benefit you and or the business and or those you loved, right? There are so many things you can get done in 6 hours. And in fact, for me, what I find is when I have a helper here for 6 hours or more, it helps me get really super uber focused. And I'm extremely efficient with my time. And I get so much done. So it really turned out to be the most positive thing. But think of ways that you could even start out small. How can you hire helpers without a major commitment? What little things could you hand off? What are some tasks that aren't CEO tasks that, somebody at $10 an hour or $15 an hour could do for you while you're doing the, $75 an hour tasks because you're the CEO. Start looking at ways that you could just slowly hand things off and go from there. And you'll learn and you'll grow. And next thing you know, you'll be happy you did it. All right. Another way that could be, you could be having fear get in your way, is getting a bad review. So many people end up usually bending over backwards and letting that, quote unquote, that customer walk all over them. The kind of customer that doesn't appreciate you, doesn't respect your policies, constantly asking for discounts or exceptions, maybe even complaining about little things. Or, that customer that, like, they pick up their dog and they get home and they're like, it looks like my dog might have a mosquito bite. Did you see if a mosquito bit my dog today? I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't even see mosquitoes when they bite me, okay? I might feel them, but I sure as heck don't ever catch them with my eyeballs first. How could you possibly do that with a dog? I've actually heard or read a dog sitter complain about that once. That was literally no lies, one of the comments that a dog sitter I just lost it. I was like, oh my gosh, there's customers out there that ask you if their dog got bit by a mosquito that day under your care. So, anyway, these are, usually when we have these kind of customers, we end up really, we're so stuck in the fear of them leaving a bad review that we're afraid to just say no. We're afraid to just say, uh, no, I couldn't possibly tell you if a mosquito bit your dog. Like, are you joking? No, you might not say it like that, but you see what I'm saying? Like, if they ask for too much, here's an example. This was so real for me. I had a client who was leaving their dog here for a month, mind you, because they were going out of the country. And they asked if they could FaceTime their dog. And I was like, oh, I was kind of caught off guard with that. And it was right as they were dropping their dog off. So I was like, okay, sure. Oh, did I regret that decision? Because they wanted to FaceTime like every couple of days. They're calling me. Is this a good time? Can we set up a time? And I was so busy, y'all. I was like, really, never is a good time. But now I already committed. So I had to follow through. Well, let me tell you, I never made that mistake again. I never, ever said yes to FaceTiming with their dog again. I just gently and politely remind them that they get to see videos and pictures of their dog every single day. Okay, so moving on. Let's see. What's on my list here is, I think this one kind of coupled into what I was saying earlier about not saying no when you mean no. But that's really just, the, I guess it you can look at it from different angles. So basically, fear can creep up into your business when it comes to not earning enough, so you overbook yourself. Okay, so that's not necessarily always because you're saying yes when you mean no, but it also means that you're afraid to take time off. You're afraid to schedule a week or two or even a long weekend and close up. And you constantly are overbooking yourself, even though you're earning plenty of money. Really, in so many different ways, it could be creeping up into your business, and you could be constantly overbooking yourself and not taking time off just because you're afraid of not earning enough or losing that customer. So I guess it kind of goes with what everything else I said. So yeah, we'll chalk that in. The last thing I would say, that these are just like the top 7 I would say that came off the top of my head when I was thinking about this subject. And I'd say the biggest fear probably of all, I mean, I know there's more. I totally know there's more. Hey, here's one that just came off the top of my head, so we'll make it 8. Here's a bonus, is that you might offer a certain type of service in addition to your dog sitting services. So maybe say you offer to give baths or do nail trimmings or what have you while the dog is under your care. And say that, you get to a point where that's just not making you happy anymore. You dread it. That's the thing you hate the most about your days. And you really don't want to do it anymore. But fear could be keeping you from letting go of that service, from eliminating that service from your line of services, because you might be afraid that, well, this customer depends on me now for this, or they might go somewhere else because I don't offer it anymore. So many things could prop up, or and the truth is, this is your business. This is a growth journey, and you're probably going to find over time certain things you enjoy doing more, while other things you enjoy doing less. And if you really want to continue to love your business and be able to sustain it for the long haul, which, I got news for you, you have to love it if you want to keep it going for a long time, then you really need to make sure that you set up your days so that the things that you have to do are things that you enjoy doing. And try to eliminate the things that you despise doing as much as possible. There's always going to be some things you have to do that you don't like. For me, it's numbers. I hate having to deal with the numbers, but you can't have a business without dealing with numbers, now can you? But I can hire out and have other people do the majority of the work when it comes to numbers, so that I don't have to spend my time doing that part because I don't like it. And that's exactly what I do. And that's another fear. Ta-da! Bonus number 2. Fear of letting go of some of your work and handing it over, fear of like handing over your finances, your QuickBooks, whatever you might use, over to someone else to handle the finance side or handle the numbers side. Because of this fear, you could be, getting yourself locked down underneath all of the numbers and hating that part of the job. Whereas you could be doing something much more productive that you get much more enjoyment out of, and or that could be moving the company forward altogether. All right, so back to the last one I was about to discuss, which I think is one of the largest fears, the biggest fears that comes up for most people, and that is fear of raising your prices. Whew. I mean, you can just feel like, ugh, the heebie-jeebies when you say that, right? The fear of raising your prices. I mean, I have done this twice. I have raised my prices twice. And both times I felt the fear swelling up inside of me like a tsunami. It was like it was going to drown me out because it's scary, y'all. I'm not going to lie. Like, you can't get around it. It is scary. It's scary to think that you could lose, the majority of your business because your prices are quote unquote too high. It's scary to think that you might not be able to pay your bills because you lost a lot of business. The fear is very real. The fear is very real. But if you listen to my podcast, you know that there's ways that you go about it when it comes to raising your prices and making sure that your value is higher than the price you charge. And when you do that and you make it a no-brainer, just check out some of my past episodes. I think I did one exactly on this topic. Then you will see that it really reduces the fears that rise up in you. And you know what? My favorite thing to remember is that if it's the wrong price for one customer and they don't see the value, then that just means they're not the right customer for me. That just means I have to do a better job at finding the perfect fit customers. The customers who prefer quality over quantity, because that's what I want to offer, is a premium, high quality service, and someone who cares so much about their dog that this is more important to them than how much it's costing them. So think about all of these ideas, these ways that fear could be getting in your way without you knowing it. And, think about how fear might be cropping up in your business in ways that I didn't even mention. Where else? What else have you kind of told yourself, maybe, I don't know, half a dozen times over the last few months, I should, right? Where have you said, I should, or I should be, or I should do this, and yet you're not doing it? Ask yourself why. And then after you answer that why, ask yourself why again, right? So if I said, I should say no when I mean no instead of saying yes when I mean no. And I ask myself why, I can say, because, or like, why don't I, right? Why don't I say yes? And my answer is something like, well, because I'm afraid I'm going to lose that customer if I tell them no this time because I'm already overbooked. And then you say, well, why? Why are you afraid of losing that customer? Because you told them no. And then my answer could be, I'm afraid that I won't have a good enough or large enough customer base or get enough bookings and therefore earn enough money. And, you can just keep asking why. Usually, when you get to the real root fear of what it is that's stopping you, you can feel it in your bones. Like it hits a nerve when you get to that one. So just keep asking why and diving a layer deeper. All right. And imagine what could happen on the other side of fear. If you decide to flip the switch and go over into courage and float or fly through the air without any security rope attached to you, just imagine what good could come from that, how much you can grow, how much you can realize how strong you are, how resourceful you can become, how creative you truly are, right? And how determined. Because the truth is, all of these qualities come out and shine when we're leaping through the air and have no choice but to let them rise. Otherwise, we're coasting along and we're not using those muscles whatsoever. We're not using courage. We're not using determination. We're not using creative ideas and resourcefulness because we're coasting. So give yourself a chance to prove just how amazing you are and take that leap. And until next time, I think this is a good spot to stop. So happy tails to you until we meet again.